One buried fish core, a shovel, and 5 minutes. That is all it takes to supercharge your garden for the entire growing season without buying another bag of fertilizer or watching your plants struggle again. No expensive synthetic feeds, no weak stems, no $200 summer fertilizer bills that make you sweat. One single fish carcass, free from the dock, grocery scraps, or your next fishing trip, buried today will release a slow explosion of nitrogen, phosphorus, and minerals straight to the roots. Your tomatoes will double in size, your corn will tower, and your harvest will explode while your neighbors still fight yellow leaves and stunted growth. Plant once, harvest like the ancestors. The average gardener spends hundreds every season on fertilizer that washes away, watching plants wilt in the heat and produce half of what they should. But Native Americans never did. They buried whole fish under their hills for centuries, feeding entire villages on poor coastal soil with nothing but ocean gifts. Modern garden stores never told you this. They sold you chemical powders and liquid feeds instead. By the end of this video, I will show you exactly how to bury one fish core and turn average dirt into a nutrient factory that supercharges your entire garden for months. But first, you need to understand what was buried and why the companies selling you $200 worth of garden junk every spring made sure you never learned about it. This is the buried fish core garden, the ancient Native American trick they tried to bury. And the reason it never came back has nothing to do with gardening. It vanished because modern garden companies needed you to keep buying their chemical bags, liquid feeds, and miracle soils year after year. One free fish core that supercharges your harvest for months threatened an entire industry built on your dependence. If you have ever stood in your garden after a long day, watching your plants wilt despite watering every single day, you know the frustration. Every summer it is the same cycle. Expensive fertilizer bags that wash away in the first rain, weak stems and yellow leaves in the heat, low yields that leave you disappointed, another $200 on your water and garden center bills. You feed and water constantly, yet half your harvest still fails. The garden centers smile while they ring you up for another round of chemical powders and miracle mixes. You are about to discover something that changes everything, because the solution is not newer technology. It is older technology that works so well, it required no upgrades and no corporate middleman. Long before garden centers stocked chemical fertilizers and plastic raised beds, Native Americans across the Northeast had already solved the problem of poor coastal soil and short growing seasons. They called it the fish core. For centuries before Columbus, tribes from the Iroquois and the Great Lakes to the Ohlone in California and the Patuxet along the Massachusetts coast buried whole fish beneath their planting mounds. Every spring, massive runs of menhaden and alewives, millions of silver fish surging up the rivers, were harvested, split open, and placed deep in the earth. This was not fancy farming. This was survival on a massive scale. In 1621, the Patuxet survivor Squanto stood with the starving Pilgrims and showed them the exact method. Dig a hole, drop in a fish, cover it with soil, then plant corn in the center, beans to climb the corn, and squash to shade the ground. This is the Three Sisters method with a buried fish core. The decomposing fish released nitrogen, phosphorus, and minerals slowly, while the soil stayed moist and loose. Entire villages thrived on land too sandy or rocky for European-style plows. One good fish run could fertilize acres, feeding thousands through harsh winters when stored food ran low. Colonial records from William Bradford and Edward Winslow describe the practice in detail. Oral traditions passed down for centuries confirm it stretched back long before European contact, and some accounts trace it to 1000 AD or earlier. By the time the Pilgrims arrived, this technique had sustained empires of millions across 2 continents. This was not a minor trick. This was how indigenous people turned ocean waste into empire-level abundance. Here's where it gets strange. This is not folklore or wishful thinking. It is physics, biology, and microbiology working together in a system so elegant it has never been improved upon. When you bury one fish core, the flesh breaks down first, releasing a massive shot of nitrogen that powers explosive green growth in the critical first 6 weeks. The bones follow more slowly, delivering steady phosphorus for deep roots and heavy flowering, plus potassium for disease resistance, and sweet, flavorful fruit. Microbes turn the entire carcass into a slow-release NPK bomb that feeds roots exactly when they need it. Over 3 to 6 months, the fish decomposes completely. No guessing, no burning, no runoff into rivers like synthetic fertilizers. The nutrients stay right where your plants can reach them. A perfect, timed release from seedling push through peak harvest. Earthworms arrive by the hundreds. Beneficial fungi weave massive underground networks. The soil loosens and breathes. Your plants grow 50 to 70% stronger, with thicker stems, darker leaves, and more fruit per plant. Yields. Double or triple immediately. Gardeners report no synthetic fertilizer is needed for the entire season, and when the fish is gone, the soil is richer and more alive than the day you started. Modern analysis confirms this. One buried fish core converts average dirt into a nutrient factory that supercharges your entire garden for months. Now here is where it gets strange. This ancient Native American method, used successfully for centuries to feed entire nations, vanished from American gardens in less than 50 years. The timeline is precise, and the culprit is unmistakable. In the mid-1940s, right after the Second World War, factories that once produced explosives pivoted hard into agriculture. The same ammonium nitrate that powered bombs became cheap synthetic fertilizer. Chemical companies flooded the market with bags of 10-10-10. At the same time, commercial fish emulsions appeared in shiny bottles, concentrated, deodorized, and expensive. Big agriculture and the exploding garden industry needed one thing above all: repeat customers. A raw fish core buried in your garden works for an entire season with zero inputs. You cannot sell someone the same fish twice. There is no patent on a decomposing menhaden, no subscription model, no yearly bottle of liquid feed to push. So the suppression was not loud, it was silent. Agricultural extension offices, the government programs meant to help ordinary people, simply stopped teaching the raw fish method. University programs focused on chemical fertilizers, plastic raised beds, and bottled fish emulsions. Garden centers stocked $200 worth of gear every spring, while the free fish at the dock or grocery scraps were labeled messy waste instead of garden gold. Then came the regulations. Starting in the 1960s and accelerating through the 1980s, big agriculture and the garden industry lobbied state legislatures for consumer protection and public health rules. Raw fish suddenly triggered odor complaints, rodent control paperwork, and backyard composting restrictions in many areas. Local ordinances painted burying whole fish as smelly, unsanitary, or even illegal if neighbors complained. The goal was not safety. Home-buried fish never caused outbreaks, and neither did the Three Sisters mounds. The goal was forgetting, so you would keep buying their bags, hoses, and miracle feeds year after year. The $60 billion garden input industry thrived while the simplest, most effective technique in history disappeared from public knowledge. No conspiracy meeting in a smoke-filled room was needed. They just made sure the free solution stayed buried under layers of plastic bottles and complicated rules. And it worked. By the 1970s, most Americans under 40 had never heard of burying fish to grow food. The knowledge that fed nations was erased, not by force, but by profit. Then in the 1970s, the ancient method came roaring back. The permaculture movement, started by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren, rediscovered the buried fish core technique and spread it worldwide. By the 1990s and the 2000s, thousands of backyard testers were burying sardines, fish heads, and whole menhaden under their crops. The results were shocking. YouTube gardeners started posting side-by-side comparisons. Tomatoes planted over a single fish head produced more than 100 pounds per plant, while the control rows stayed small and yellow. Squash vines exploded across entire yards. Corn stalks grew taller than the gardeners themselves. Real-world tests showed consistent 2 to 3 times growth with zero added fertilizer. University and community trials backed it up. Extension services and soil science programs ran controlled tests, confirming the fish core delivered measurable spikes in nitrogen, phosphorus, and microbial activity. Yields doubled or tripled, while synthetic beds needed constant feeding. Even modern indigenous groups joined the revival. The Oneida Nation and other Haudenosaunee communities began teaching the Three Sisters method again on their own lands, passing the knowledge back to the next generation exactly as their ancestors did. Today, the proof is everywhere. Videos, before and after photos, harvest weigh-ins. If it supercharges gardens after centuries of suppression and still doubles production with one free fish, why isn't every backyard using it? Here's the part you have been waiting for. This is so simple, a 12-year-old can do it in 5 minutes. Start with the one buried fish core version. That is all most backyard gardeners need. First, collect one fish carcass, head or guts, from your next fishing trip. Cheap sardines from the grocery store or scraps from the fish market. Any fresh or frozen fish works great. Menhaden, alewives, herring, or salmon. Avoid anything heavily seasoned, preserved, or already cooked. In spring, right when you are ready to plant, dig a hole 12 to 18 inches deep for each plant. Drop the whole fish core straight into the bottom. Cover it with 4 to 6 inches of soil so the smell stays underground and animals stay away. Now plant directly on top. Tomatoes, corn, squash, beans, and cucumbers love it most. One fish powers 1 or 2 plants for the entire season. If you want even more power, build a small Three Sisters mound. Put the same fish at the bottom, then plant corn in the center, beans around it, and squash to shade the ground. The best time is early spring, right at planting. The fish starts breaking down as the soil warms and feeds your crops exactly when they need the biggest boost. After that first season, the soil stays richer for years. No refill schedule needed, no hoses, no fertilizer bags. Just walk away and watch your garden explode. One single fish core supercharges 1 to 2 plants for months with 0 extra work. That is it. No timers, no guessing, no $200 in supplies. 5 minutes of work, and you have a self-feeding garden that keeps producing like the ancestors. A 12-year-old can do this. 5 minutes of work, and your garden will never be the same. Here is something no one talks about publicly, but everyone who tries this discovers within the first season. Your fertilizer spend drops by 80% or more, often to 0 for the entire year. The buried fish core delivers steady nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium exactly when roots need it. Plants develop stronger pest and drought resistance because they grow deeper, healthier root systems. No chemical runoff poisoning your soil or local streams. Fruit and vegetables come out bigger, sweeter, and more flavorful. Beneficial soil life explodes. Earthworms arrive by the hundreds. Fungal networks spread like underground highways. The soil stays loose and alive long after the fish is gone. And it costs free. Fishing waste, grocery store sardine scraps, or heads from your next catch become pure garden gold. Real gardeners are seeing it happen right now. One suburban dad in Massachusetts pulled 87 pounds of tomatoes from just 4 plants grown over buried fish cores. A family in Oregon reported corn stalks 9 feet tall, with ears twice the normal size. Permaculture farms across the country are cutting their input costs in half and quietly laughing all the way to the harvest table. Here's the part the garden industry really hates. People are trading that extra produce in neighborhood gift economies, tomatoes for eggs, corn for honey, no cash, no store runs, no inputs required. Just abundance from one buried fish. The ocean was always giving, the rivers were always giving, we just forgot how to listen. Here's the final detail that should make you angry. The fish heads or carcasses thrown away at docks every single day, or tossed in your trash after dinner, are the exact same objects that could supercharge your garden for months and double your harvest. The only difference is the label. Call it waste, and you will keep buying their chemical bags, liquid feeds, and miracle soils forever. Call it fertilizer, and the $60 billion garden input industry loses another customer. They made sure this stayed buried under layers of modern solutions and complicated rules, because one free fish that works for an entire season threatens everything they sell you every single spring. The fish was always there. They just made sure you never saw it as gold. The choice is simple. You can keep renting from the system, buying another bag of chemical fertilizer, another bottle of liquid feed, another miracle soil mix every spring, forever dependent on companies that need you broke and buying. Or you can bury one fish core today and own abundance for the entire season and beyond. Plant once, harvest like the ancestors. Your garden feeds itself. Your soil grows richer every year. Your family will still be pulling massive tomatoes and towering corn from the same spot long after the fish has returned to Earth. The fish does not lie. It just decomposes and feeds. If this reminded you that some of the best resources still grow free and ignored, hit subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and every share helps preserve the knowledge they tried to bury. Every week we uncover another piece of knowledge that the industrial food system would prefer stayed buried. So here's what I want to know. Have you ever tried burying fish in your garden? Drop your answer in the comments. Next week we look at the backyard pond system that produces more protein per square foot than any vegetable in your garden, feeds itself, and costs almost nothing to maintain. It has been used in Asia for thousands of years. Until then, the fish are